Hey, it's your boy Dustin from the Flying Chairs, the Rise podcast. And today, oh shit, you won't believe it. I got my boy Kai back for the second time. And it's been like about a year since I talked to him last. But I told Chrissy about Kai, and her mind was blown. I showed her some of the videos that Kai has released, and they're mind blowing. He's got powers that you're just not going to believe. He's very famous in Europe, and he's been traveling all around the world demonstrating what he does, and it's just awesome. And you don't see too many of these people. I mean, you hear about them in the history, but you don't see too many in modern times like Kai. And he's definitely making a name for himself. And I just love hearing him talk because he's got a unique voice, man. I just love your storytelling. So yeah, man, I'll let you tell us a little bit about where you grew up and how you discovered you have these powers.
Of course, first of all, thank you so much that you're having me. And yeah, I mean, this is the oldest spirit communication technique we are actually knowledgeable about. So it was, we look at it as the Western tradition of spiritism or spiritualism. Spiritualism is a belief system, and spiritism is the actual tradition, the tradition of communicating with spirits. And this is so old, actually, as old as the human beings are. Archaeologists even believe in the Neanderthal that all began. And already this primitive human being had an idea of an unseen world, had an idea that this unseen world is addressable and can be contacted in a way and form. And not only unseen, but in a way intertwined with our world. So the timeline then went on over the indigenous folks, and the indigenous folks, the Northern American natives, they were the providers for, or they were like role models for the first Western mediums that then started to work from 1850 starting. And it all started in the West with physical phenomena as well. So these phenomena are not only spirit communication, but an environment in which again and again the supernatural was manifesting. And this is by far not as awkward as it may sound. That is even today much more widespread than we may have an idea about. Usually you never hear about physical phenomena, not only in a ceremonial environment, but at least as often, now obviously even more often in a spontaneous way and form. This is what people are experiencing usually as hauntings. These hauntings can be mild. These hauntings can be powerful and ruthless, even when there is negative energy to digest. These spiritual forces can become quite unnerving. The poltergeist is a German description, a word, a term describing the most negative form of haunting. So it is not necessarily a specific ghost, as we would maybe think from that word poltergeist. It's like a noisy ghost. No, it's actually a term which is describing a very complex scenario that is happening in social groups, usually families. And yeah, so we have that spontaneous route, allegedly alone in the German-speaking environment. We have a university which is looking into this parapsychological stuff, and they estimate 3,000 cases with physical phenomena per year. And
shit.
that's, of course, a number we would never imagine. Yeah, because you never hear about it. And
No.
that has to do with the taboo that is going on around these phenomena, basically, because they are seemingly contradicting our scientific worldview, of course.
Hmm.
And we all know how quickly you are cancelled today in this beautiful cancel culture around us.
Yeah.
And so people are afraid. They feel actually stigmatized. Do not talk about it. And in the worst case, become ruined in the end. You know, they are suddenly afraid of the house. Maybe they have just bought it, but they want to flee, but they cannot. They do not have the money. So, not necessarily beautiful things can happen when negative spiritual energy is out of control. But in
Mm.
the ceremonial environment, something totally different is taking place. So in our seances, this is an environment in which we can observe very secure and under good lighted conditions the involvement of our kind with these spirit forces. The the so-called occult experimentation room is something very unique, and that has to do with its build, how the occult seance or experimentation room is thought to be, or how it should be, how the experiments are to be made in the seance room, because it is designed as an evolutional space for enlightenment. In the seance room, you are asking the questions which were not asked by now, or you're looking for answers which have to do with our most profoundest questions. Where do we come from? Where to do we go? And all these things. So, coming from the natives, overtaken in a cultural transfer by the young generation of that just born tradition, spiritism in America. It ran over the country like an epidemic, jumped over to Europe and ran over most of the European countries also, epidemic like. And yeah, and then different developments happened, of course, and science was looking into it. Parapsychology was invented, so to speak, and people wanted to know what is going on in this very unique environment. The brightest heads of science feel attracted to a very mysterious and a very fascinating new area of research. And yeah, until today, this development went through harsh conditions and developments. Yeah, and I myself, as a person, I cannot tell you why I had that in my calendar, in my fate, in my book of fate. But it started so early and pushed me onto that route. With 13, then I felt so pushed towards own experimentation, and I started seances when I was 13. I'm now 56,
Wow.
and that's my advantage that I started so early and could collect so many experiences and knowledge and so forth. So that's the story.
Wow. That's
Wow,
so
so
awesome.
cool.
Yeah, no. And so you're kind of mentioning too that in these seances, they kind of help harness and even kind of use you as a tool to get these things out, like the ectoplasma. Um, Tell me more about how's that come about, and like how is it a seance where everybody's energy is focused? We're enough for because I've seen you do this in front of other people. That's what I love about you. It's just not you just sitting there in videos just by yourself. You're surrounded by people, especially the table levitations too. Like you have I love how you before you start the seance, you have everybody like, hey, look, with my foot, I can easily move this by my foot, or like I'm gonna have people put my hands on my hands and put your feet on my feet. So I just to
Yeah.
show that I'm not doing anything and everybody else
Hmm.
is helping me gain this power. And I love that. And that's just another thing. There's no trickery. I love how you explain this all and you have the cameras there showing too. And I just love that it's in front of all these people that are witnessing this shit. And they're probably shitting their
Yeah.
pants. At least I would.
Yeah, no, no, you wouldn't, because it's quite a light atmosphere actually.
Is it?
Many do
Okay.
believe it is, yeah, as you're describing it, that the people are a little bit frightened. I mean, uh, the the presence of something unusual is indeed palpable,
Mm-hmm.
but that does not lead at all to a fright, to fear or anxiety. In the contrary, people feel lifted in this unforeseen presence of and their own experience, that people feel in their guts that something is present but is not so usual, and that does delight
Okay.
usually the people.
Sure.
Um, what was there a question?
No, it's just like, what is it? The
Oh,
ectoplasma.
yeah,
Where
oh,
did
oh yeah.
what does it take to get that going, or how is that all started? Is it the
Yeah,
seance,
yeah,
or yeah? Go ahead.
yeah. So we want to offer the people a very transparent environment, because there are legends out there, um, people are regularly confronted with when they are interested in such kind of things. Legends like, in a seance, it is always completely dark.
Hmm.
False. In our seance, it is never completely dark. There is at least, even in the few initiating darkness sections of the evening, there are at least orientation points that you never lose your spatial understanding and perception.
Hmm.
And other legends are like, in the darkness, the medium runs around and does the effects by itself. And we present a German, very parapsychology oriented form of mediumship scholarship and mediumship training, the way I was brought up to work in a seance room. And in my case, the medium, me, is always being held in the chair by a independent control person sitting besides the medium. And this control person is allowed, during the darkness phases, use all of her or his limbs to control the medium, specifically during the phenomenal stages,
Hmm.
in the chair. So you are right. We are trying to offer also what you described with the table, that we are showing stage magician techniques. There is a culture in which stage magicians do present fake seances, and I am very earnest in letting the people know that this is not a fake seance, this is the original. Therefore, we do regularly invite stage magicians to
Hmm.
look at what we are doing,
Oh.
because I want them to confirm that they cannot detect stage props, stage
Right.
magicians' routines, and so forth, and that we could successfully do in the last years. You can find all the reports on our blogs, on the websites, and so forth. So, yes, we are trying to be very transparent. As a physical medium and in internet times, you are always under attack.
Yes. Yes.
And simply from worldview, from different worldviews, there is a perspective that cannot accept that something like that is maybe possible indeed. Their worldview is not allowing that. They understand that to be genuine, and they right out call you a fraud.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And you have to be independent enough to deal with that,
Mhm.
and again start with a new group from the beginning, and uh, teach them into our processes. That's why there is at least 90 minutes, 100 minutes, an introduction at the beginning, in which we are, yeah, always telling very important things, that you understand it rightly what we are doing.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. And again, I just love the fact that you show the people, even like online too, that stuff that your techniques and before you start of how you run things and you're not doing any trickery. So again, I just love that whole aspect of your demonstrations. And I even love
Thank you.
the demonstrations of things coming out of your eyes, like the jewels and crystals. That's amazing too. I was like, holy snap! People have
That is
seen that.
amazing. I showed my son. He
Oh.
was very impressed. He wanted to
Oh
know if you
yeah.
can control your powers or if they come to you randomly.
Yeah.
And then send him my warm hellos, yeah, to your dear son. How old is he?
He's 8, but he's very interested in the paranormal, and he was very impressed by your video, and he had a bunch of questions.
Okay, of course. I had these questions. I would have them as well if I would not be me.
Ectoplasm is described as a physical manifestation of psychic energy. Would you say this is a correct description?
Yeah, I would say that is a correct description. I mean, ectoplasm is a lot, but that, I believe, is very much to be the case. I explain it usually a little bit
Sure.
different because I am not referring to psychic energy. I refer to the ethereal body
Mhm.
and the idea that there is an informational, structurized, informational field like complex, which is representing all the information about what I am spiritually, bodily, emotionally, psychologically,
Mhm.
neurologically, all these, socially, of course, all these informations are existing in this ethereal body of mine. And usually it is understood to be embedded in our physical body. And when these when the seance rooms laws are then in craft, through these processes we can easily imagine that parts or sections of this ethereal body become exteriorized.
Oh, oh.
So what we actually see outside of the medium is a section, is a made visible part of the inner structures of the
Whoa.
medium. That could be an impulse, for example. It could be a motive, for example, the motive to come close to the sitters.
Oh,
And
whoa.
you will then see the ectoplasm, how it is like lively, moving
Yes.
and breathing and
Yes.
crawling
Yep.
over the floor,
Mm-hmm.
maybe to come close to somebody. So this is this is the way to understand things which, in their complexity, are actually beyond our understanding. But of course, we are interested in, at least maybe in metaphors. We are, to a degree, enabled to describe what is going on.
Wow. Yeah. Again, that video of you with the ectoplasm going all the way down to your feet and it drops to the floor and it kind of just starts acting like a snake. I'm like, whoa, that is amazing. And then
Uh-huh,
it kind of
mhm,
starts to dissipate and disappear right in front
What
of
does
you.
it
And I was
feel
just like,
like? Does
yeah, it
it
was,
feel like an extension of your body?
You need to know that these intensive moments are usually accompanied by what we are calling deep trance. And the spirits are usually organize a state of mind for me that is not capable to interfere.
mm,
So in earlier days, I called it a slumber, but actually it feels more like a form of narcosis.
whoa,
Actually, the speed in which I'm shut down in these initiating stages of breathing routine and starting the event. Excuse me, I have to have a.
yeah.
It makes crazy sounds.
It's fine.
It's not my psychic energy that is fighting with the cup here of this iced tea. Okay. Um. Yeah. Yeah. Deep trance and not being present, but there are impressions in regards to ectoplasm, and actually, I have for a long time never talked about that and never
Hmm.
mentioned it. And I was just asked, like you have just asked, about my sensations in regards to ectoplasm. I mean, there are in these deep trance stages, I sometimes slip into substages, which maybe can be described or named as a dream.
Hmm.
So being in a deep trance and producing dreamlike images, and what you then usually see is are images from the perspective I am looking from where I am sitting, usually in the control, being held by somebody, but there is something more profound. And that started in these very, very early years. And it was a strange sensation I never could actually grab or fathom, not knowing, is that a dream? Is that a memory?
Hmm.
What kind of strange sensation is that? And the sensation was that I awoke from a sleep, or I remembered that I had that sensation, and the sensation is having something in your mouth that is so big that you are frightened that it may block your
Oh,
tubes.
sure, sure.
And it is a very helpless feeling on the one side, but on the other side, it has a vibration of a common thing as well. And it is so profound that I
Uh-huh.
really believe it is a maybe a form of an archetype, which is maybe even in native tradition in a way represented as well. Uh, so this is a very powerful memory or a dreamlike state in which there is this helplessness and even the fear that I might not be able to breathe further.
Yeah.
And this is the most present image and experience I have with that.
Wow. Yeah, I'd say. No, because I
Intense.
think everybody would be curious to know what you feel going through
Right.
that. You know what I'm saying? Like, it looks intense.
Yeah, but
Sounds like
Dustin and Christina, be aware that all this routine is built onto automatic activity of my body. So
Mm.
maybe you have heard about automatic writing,
Oh.
that people are somewhere else with their minds, but their hands and arms can write something which is totally not associated with the thinking of
Huh.
the person. And we are calling one of the initial stages for all that the automatic speech process. So the deep trance begins with breathing routine and the installment of a spontaneous activity of our voice box, actually. Automatic speaking is the same like automatic writing, only that
Mm.
other muscle groups are involved. So it's not the muscle groups of the arm and hand, it's the muscle group yeah, of your voice box, of your voice, and of your speaking device, so to speak, in your body. Yeah, and and when we look careful at that, we suddenly become aware that speaking for us human beings is always automatic and spontaneous.
Mm.
When we would be talking, maybe today you have written down a question or so, but usually when we are in a free speech process, we are not thinking about what might be the next sentence of mine and of how many words the
Yeah.
sentences are built by. Not at all. We speak automatically, and the process is nurtured by everything that we are. Everything that we know, everything that we have learned, everything we are connected with, all that can be spontaneously chosen by our automatic speech process, which is faster than our thinking.
Mm.
That's the problem. We first speak before we think.
Yeah, that's true.
We have,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
and
That's it.
so
That's
so
awesome.
this is not really something extremely special that happens with us all. You only have to apply it a little bit, that you take yourself out of that process and that you overgive it to an incoming of information. We believe it is coming from beyond the human being. And actually, this process enables then a speaking trans personality that speaks up to 4 hours, and there is not one thought of me involved. This body speaks by itself for 4 hours, is not being nurtured by me with a thought or with information or with thinking, but my body gives itself suddenly another name. My
Huh.
body claims then it is not anymore Kai. My body claims then that Kai is sleeping and that him is Hans, a
Oh.
deceased parapsychologist from Germany. And, you know, names are a little bit difficult, or we cannot really say from names if a communicator is valuable or not. But simply to describe the process, That's how it is going on. So I am really switched off, and I am using processes and routines known for thousands of years that somehow do produce these transpersonalities, meta personalities. And yes, they do then speak fully automatically.
Wow. So your body's kind of like a vessel for this, and
Absolutely.
it's
Be
Absolutely.
it's
happening on a subconscious level. Has anyone attempted to touch the ectoplasm?
Oh, yeah. Many times, ectoplasm was touched by probably hundreds of people. At the moment, the spirits do not let guests touch the ectoplasm, but we had years of working with the public, and ectoplasm was allowed to be touched, and always for the toucher,
Hmm.
a surprising experience, because what he sees is absolutely not as is it as it is feeling, or how he feels it. For
Huh.
example, it often looks like dry, a little bit like a whale or a cotton wool, something. And when the sitters then touch it, they claim it feels totally wet and
Whoa.
ice cold.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's interesting. Oh
Yeah.
shit. That is really, yeah, because it makes you want, again, this all these questions come into your head of like,
Right.
what does it feel like having this done, or how does it feel in general if you touched it?
Of course,
No,
of
again,
course.
I'm so glad, Kai, that you have the knowledge, and especially you go back further in time with history, you know what I'm saying, about where this really came, and then you come back to your story and kind of how it relates to you. I love that. So thank you for doing that. And no,
Yeah,
it's
you're
just
welcome.
no, it's just fascinating. And the fact that this has been again, like you're saying, during the West and here in America, where I think one of the bigger skeptics in America was, I think, Harry Houdini was one of the guys who'd go around and try to like, you're fake, and yeah, you're doing that with your poles and whatever the hell. And I think him and his wife would do this, like go and harass other psychic mediums. Yeah,
Uh,
what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, Houdini was a declared medium debunker,
Yeah.
and he did write and talk a lot about that. He was invited in discussions. There was a lot of discussing and talking, and the first radio shows and so forth. Spiritism and spiritualism was a big topic in the late settler times,
Yeah.
1850 beginning. And Houdini became interested after the death of his mother.
Oh,
And that might have been an economical marketing decision.
sure, sure.
He stylized himself as the medium's hunter,
Yeah.
so to speak.
Yeah.
Um, in the end, exposing every medium to be a fraud, I believe something like that was claimed by him. What then, of course, was a little bit disappointing
Yeah.
when, after his death, his assistant, under oath, did declare that he several times was instructed by Houdini to smuggle helper instruments into the
Oh.
seance room to
Oh.
fraudulently
Oh, sure.
destroy careers of people.
Yeah.
And that is, of course, under every thinkable niveau, you know.
Yeah. No,
So
you're right.
that's poor.
Yeah. No, again, it's just I heard that when I heard that a long time ago, I just kind of sparked up that again, people back then were being challenged, and yeah, again, that's sad. And again, I think it was a popularity battle too at the same time. Like everybody was
Yeah,
trying to get famous, trying to get a name for
yeah.
themselves, and like they would do anything to kind of
absolutely,
like, and we
absolutely,
kind of do that
absolutely.
today. Everybody's crazy on or jealousy is a big thing too. It's just
Oh yeah.
like who's this guy and why is he so special? And well, again, Kai, you put in the work to do what you're doing. So like uh so fuck all these other haters and all these people. Again, that's why I love this stuff. I believe this stuff is real because I believe there's ETs. I believe there's Bigfoot. I believe there's ghosts. I believe there's people who can harness certain things of our reality. And you're one of these people, Kai, that you again, you use yourself as a tool, and you people who are hardcore believers and followers of you or come there to support you. I'm here to support you, man, because you blew me away the first time I met you, and when I
Yeah,
started watching it, when
thank
I
you,
first,
thank you very much, dear Dustin. But you do not even have to be a believer. You only need to be knowledgeable about anthropology.
Hmm, okay,
Because these things, the history of the supernatural is so meticulously described in the books and the city chronics and diaries and personal diaries. So, if you are believing in the human witness, or humans that have the capability to witness rightfully events, then you can never reject the the fact that supernatural powers are in one form or another existing around us, exist
right.
around us. Yeah.
Hi, I have a question for you. After a seance, do you ever feel a little off, like maybe a negative entity has entered your psyche?
Usually not. I'm always am dependent on the energy of the group. You know, sometimes we have very knowledgeable, very experienced sitters. They emanate all the energy that is actually needed for the processes.
Mm,
And when that is being done so beautifully, I come strong from the trance, usually. If we have weak groups, there is the notion that what the sitters do not achieve to call up, I am stepping in that systemic of bodies and minds who are present in such a seance room. I'm one amongst 20, 25, something like that. And so when we then had a weak group, I feel also weak at
mm,
this very moment, believing that I had to outbalance what the others could not bring in.
sure.
And yeah, and there can be many reasons for that. And entities are usually not the problem because this special experimental space in which the human being is served and offered by higher spirits deeper insights into the secrets of reality and the secrets of consciousness. This experimental space is very secure. Thousands of years of doorkeepers and spirit guides are securing this space that we human beings have the opportunity to freely experiment and not to be frightened that there is maybe a negative spiritual aspect may play a role, right? So your question is very important because such an idea is always a reason for, yeah, maybe being frightened. And we do not want the people to be frightened, of course, and we have the right arguments to let them know they do not need to be frightened. So, no negative entities. In the history and the chronicles of the seance rooms, we have no hitchhiker. phenomenon,
Mm,
as we, for example, have it from Skinwalker Ranch or other events, uh, when such transfer phenomena um, can take place.
right.
Interesting.
That's so cool. And I seen some of the other seances that you have where I don't know if something in the middle of the table will just appear, like a jewel or even like some jewelry or something that I think maybe like I think I say a video of you just walking out into the parking lot and something just like came in front of something, dropped right there in front of you, like, oh, there you go. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm,
Yeah, tell
mm-hmm.
us more. What? How has that come about? How is that?
Actually, very rarely in the environment of the seances, basically, seance room phenomena do trigger themselves already in between seances.
Mm,
Julia, my wife, is here witness number one. Usually, when I am not present, let's say I am in the garden having a smoke, Julia is sitting at the PC and is working, and suddenly an object falls from the ceiling onto her keyboard. Oh yes, that happened countless of times.
wow.
And yeah, these are materializations. There are several sorts of materializations. So this is one which happens before or after a seance. We discern between apports and pure materializations. The difference is apports have existed before,
Hmm.
somewhere on Earth, very probably, somewhere in space and time, it has existed before or is planned to exist in future.
Mm.
And the process has taken it out from its own space-time environment and delivers it into the experimental space, into the seance room. This is the apportation, the apport. The other form of materialization is from thought form to matter, meaning the object has not existed before. And
Oh.
we have impressing objects that both tell this uh, discernment between these two. Usually, we are then asked objects that already have existed, or maybe even are existing at the moment, and the spirits are then bringing them in. Do they steal these objects or what?
Right.
Yeah, it's a justified question, right?
Right, right.
When they claim they are existing, usually things are in our society, in people own these things
Right.
usually, and the spirits declared us then that mm, object we shall imagine an object, uh, the last man on earth or woman on earth that was remembering that they're in the attic, in a specific drawer, hidden in the right corner of it, there was a beautiful old ring from my grandma.
Wow.
So there's only one person left who knows about that ring. And this last person has died now.
Wow.
Spirits claim that when no human being is any more clinging by thought on an object, it is remembering or it is imagining or whatever, when there is no body on earth left then these objects lose their stability in the three-dimensional world
Oh,
and start like to fluctuate. And in that state, when they are not anymore uh, being held by thought, by memory, by a human being who is remembering it, uh, then the spirits can more easily or more easily, as if 10 people would remember the object, so they can somehow take it from our reality, and then they have the control over it
wow.
and present it in the seance room. Then we had the most amazing jewelry, and we had the most profane pieces of plastic, looking beautiful, yes, but having no material value at all. But that's okay. Spirits do know human beings, and spirits do exactly know when they would share valuable, monetarily valuable objects. They know what would then be going on. People would be jealous. How much worth is your stone? Why is your stone more worth than mine? Is the
Mm,
spirit world loving you more than me?
mhm.
So, besides that, spirits are an antibody of monetary value. They are avoiding these moments of envying or jealousy.
Sure, sure.
Yeah. The specialty coming with these objects is the paranormal process that was revealing itself in front of everybody's eyes. And that is, I believe, the actual value when people are then in the following being given these objects. So we do not behold, no, uh, none of these objects, they are all given into the hands of our guests.
Wow. That is amazing. Again, just to hear it like having your wife behind the computer and having this thing fall from the ceiling onto her lap,
How do
basically.
you explain that?
Yeah, it's like no, it reminds me of the Poltergeist movie in one of the scenes where this watches just dropped from the ceiling, and then there were watches from
Mm.
all sorts of
Oh,
time, like
yeah. Mm-hmm.
like from the 1800s to the earlier ones. But again, it's just kind of like again the power of manifestation, and again the memories of holding on to these objects is what's keeping us in this three-dimensional reality. I never heard that, and I was really intrigued when I just heard that just now. Like, oh shit, never thought about that.
Mm.
And it's
Coolest
more
thing.
interesting. Oh, that's even
I feel
more
like
crazy.
our physical world is so feeble compared
It
to the
is.
world,
Yes.
really. And,
Mm-hmm.
and speaking of poltergeist, I know, Kai, that you mentioned that a poltergeist is not an actual ghost entity. More of, I always thought of it as more of a physical manifestation of something that some sort of an emotional energy. Because I feel like in houses with a lot of like angsty teenagers, as I was telling Dustin in our first interview,
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah.
see a lot of quote unquote poltergeist activity, a lot of noise and clanging and stuff, which I think is connected to the person. Kai, do you think that's at all related to the ectoplasm and how that manifests?
You mean the poltergeists and the physical phenomena of poltergeists,
Yeah,
if they are connected with ectoplasm?
yeah.
I mean, yeah, if we understand ectoplasm as the material aspect of hauntings in which things become visible and palpable, yes, there is this psychic structure like the object and the spirits are often at times talking about psychic structures. So this is also a term they are regularly used to describe the ongoings in the seance room and how they can be explained. But you said something else, what is very true, because 1984, there was a huge meta study be done by two, I believe, two pedagogues or two psychologists, two ladies, and it was called, what's the English word? In German, it is called Der Steckbrief des Spuks. So in the Wild West, when they were looking for the bad bandits and so forth, they were putting
Wow.
their faces on a what? How do you call that? These wanted.
Wanted poachers. Yeah.
Okay.
And how is that? Is another another name for that
Just the
piece
wanted.
of
Just the wanted posters. Just the
yeah?
just the criminals that. So these they just draw the faces of these people, not knowing,
Exactly.
seeing
And you
that.
only call it wanted poster. There is no
Right.
other.
Yeah. No.
Okay. So then this meta study was called the wanted poster of haunting.
Oh, cool.
That was the title of a huge meta study, taking in all the classical materials from Roll and Gold and Cornell and Tisanet. He was a policeman official who collected between 1850 and 1920 500 poltergeist cases that happened in the French society and in which police was involved and
Wow.
played a role. So a lot of classical studies were all put together and with very modern techniques. They actually were looking at new data. And one of the surprises was, even though we hear so many things about haunted houses and haunted castles and even haunted paths and routes through
Yeah.
forests, let's say, the meta study clearly showed that a vast majority, around 85% of the cases with hauntings up to poltergeists are clinging to people and not to places.
Mm.
So there are so-called spook focus persons involved. These persons are, their presence is mandatory only when they are at home. The antics of the poltergeist are starting to happen, even though it is obvious that the focus person is not involved in any form of trickery or mimicking, and only 15% of cases are connected with houses, spook castles, and so forth. So that's this I always found a surprising find out.
That is
A lot
amazing.
of sense.
That
Very interesting.
is.
Mm.
No, you Kai, you like hit all the aspects of like
Yes.
psychic mediumship. Like, it's like because there is so many things to it, you know, it's just not this one thing like you're reading people's mind, but again, like this the whole physical. I just love that. Just the see with your own two eyes type of thing. It's just it's one thing for a psychic to say, yeah, I know your mother, and you know, saying like that.
Mm.
No, the see with your own two eyes, it just it brings a whole different aspect to the culture, and you're keeping this old culture alive again. Like you're making a name for yourself where you're going all around the world spreading your knowledge and getting more people into it, and maybe finding out they might have a certain power themselves, you know, and maybe you want to kind of follow in your footsteps because you're not going to be around forever. You know what I'm saying? But I'm glad that you are uh,
Yeah.
putting your seeds down everywhere where
Hmm.
you're going and having this. You have a following, man. That's why I love this stuff. I love what you do, and I'm here to support that. And yeah, I think we're gonna wrap it up for now because we're rolling to an hour. But I'd love to have you back, Kai, and
Of
just
course.
Absolutely.
have because
Of
I've
course.
actually
Maybe one sentence. I am not at
sure.
home, and that's why I look a little bit uncomfortable because I'm here in an Airbnb,
Are you
and
really?
Oh,
I have my PC here not in the right. I'm not HD, but only SD because I forgot my camera, and
That's okay.
yeah, so only that, you know.
But no,
Yeah,
I actually when I
thank you so very much that you
yeah,
did let me share these things we did share, and there are so many, so interesting
so
more
interesting.
things to talk about.
Yes. And hey, Kai, can you tell people right now where they can find you? Maybe your YouTube and your Facebook or anything they
Mhm.
can kind of start to look at you up.
TV Beyond by Kai Muegge is the YouTube channel, and there you will be finding a lot of material about our work, but also about classical historical forms of mediumship and always physical phenomena. I was from the beginning on exclusively looking for the techniques that deal with physical phenomena, and that's why physical phenomena stand in the focus of this YouTube site, and of course our regular website kaimugge.com. Thank you,
Sweet. No, that's awesome,
Justin.
Kai.
You
No,
know.
I really appreciate you coming back on. And I love to have you back because when I told people that I was having you on, they're like, can we be sitting on and listening with us? I was like, I don't want too many heads on this podcast because everybody wants to ask you questions. I'm like, I don't want to overload you with questions. But no, again,
right.
people are so curious here in the US about you. And I just love to get your name out and just have them check out your
Same.
videos because it's really cool, man. And I'm so glad to have you, and I'm so glad to have you back in the future.
Absolutely, and it's so cool that you are doing such an interesting show here, which is
Oh,
exactly
yeah, thank you.
circulating.
Yeah,
So that matches,
yeah,
that
thank you.
fits.
It definitely does. And yeah, well, hey, Kai, why don't you stay with me for 2 more minutes?